feel like the harmony line is really a harmony line with the bass.
Wow, thank you. Good morning. Welcome. Good morning. Welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We are so happy you have chosen this space, this Sabbath, this sanctuary and time. We know that you have so many options when it comes to Sunday morning, and that you chose to be here with us is something we celebrate. We extend an especially warm welcome to any visitors who are joining, and of course, all the folks who are listening online. We now invite everyone to turn and greet each other with elbows. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. I have a few announcements this morning. First of all, as it is the second Sunday of the month, there will be a brief Just the Basics session right after the service. This will be 20 to 30 minutes, and it's for newcomers. It will give you a chance to ask questions. Miss Jennifer Nelson here will meet you in the foyer after the service, and she will lead you to the meeting room. Secondly, you may have noticed that there are not hymnals on your chairs. This is because we've been projecting our words on the wall. For most people, this is enough. However, if you can read music and you would like to, or if you'd like to look through the wealth of readings in the back of the hymnal, you can always just pick one up on your way in the morning. Now, we all know that COVID cases are on the rise. The committee that makes decisions about COVID met this week, and because of our mitigation systems, which include proof of vaccine and full masking for everyone, we have discerned that we are going to stay open for the time being, and thus, here you are. We want you to make the choice that is best for you and your family in every situation. Those of us who are joining us online, we hope we'll see you soon. We miss you. But as we are continuing the in-person services, we are requiring that by next week, everyone who is eligible for a booster is able to provide proof of that booster. We must stay vigilant and up to date on this stuff. Being physically healthy is a huge part of our wellness, and so is our spirituality. And thus we are taking every precaution so that we can remain available to you as a sacred space. Lastly, we have a lot coming in the next several months, so I invite you to check out the church newsletter, your weekly email. We will be opening on the first service of every month for our whole church services again. Now that children above 5 can be vaccinated, we will be embarking on these multi-generational services once a month, once more. In other news, we are also going to be taking up a congregational-wide anti-racist curriculum this spring. The shelter opened on December 31st. Small groups are planning a big extravaganza in April. And in so many ways, our church is taking these slow, deliberate steps towards living into our mission and walking the walk that the world so badly needs. Our opening words today come from poet Lucille Clifton. She says, "I am running into a new year, and the old years blow back like a wind that I catch in my hair, like strong fingers, like all my old promises, and it will be hard to let go of what I said to myself about myself when I was 16 and 26 and 36, even 46. But I am running into a new year, and I beg what I love and I leave to forgive me." Come, let us worship. Please rise as you are willing and able for our opening hymn, number 38. As Jackie Barrett comes forward to light our chalice, we invite you to join in reading our covenant that is printed on the wall behind me. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus we do covenant with one another. Each month, we as a community take time to reflect on a theme. The children do this in their classes, and we do it here in worship and in our small groups. This month, the theme is living with intention. When I think about living with intention, I think of my practice of picking a word of the year. Maybe you have heard of this practice before. I first heard about it in 2021. So last year was my first year doing it, and I chose to pick the word patience. The point is to pick an intention, a word, that is less about accomplishing a single task, like running a marathon, but a word that will focus your energy and guide your decision-making throughout the year. I had ample opportunity to practice patience in 2021, and I
kept patience as a focal point, and it did have guiding power for me. It worked, so to speak. So I decided to pick a new word of the year for 2022. Today, I wanted to share the behind the scenes, my thought process when picking my word of the year, and hope it encourages you to sit within the practice and see if it feels good to pick your own word of the year. My personal practice includes asking myself 3 questions. How do I want to feel in the new year? How do I feel right now? And what is the gap between those 2 feelings? After a lot of thinking and journaling, I pinpoint a theme to guide my focus and energy for the year. So, the behind the scenes of my 2022 Word of the Year starts with a little backstory, like all good things. In 2020, mid-pandemic, my husband Kevin and I started a podcast called Growth-Minded Marriage, which I shared some of during our last October theme on cultivating relationship. One of the main takeaways from our podcasting experience was that Kevin and I were able to articulate what we wanted our life to look like, our dream life, if you will. And it was a life focused on time. We wanted to be time rich, hold time as our dearest asset. In 2021, we took steps to strip our lives of things that stole time from us and became very judicious with what we gave our time to. However, from this new beautiful place, a question began to invade my peace. When is it enough? When do I have enough time, enough moments of happiness, enough space for creativity, enough love? This feeling of not being satisfied with what I have is a long-standing demon in my life. And it was back. As my life became more aligned with my values, the more this demon found new ways to be heard. This internal mental demon kept saying, sure, this life is good, but what if it could be better? Here are some examples of what I mean. I had finally created the habit of a morning routine, yay, and carved out 45 minutes alone, full of journaling and reading and meditating, and occasionally one of my blessed children interrupts me 10 minutes before I'm done, and I feel like the whole thing is ruined. I get frustrated and feel like I don't have enough time. Here is something else. Over the past few years, I've gone from working 60 hours a week to 40 to 30 to 20, finally fulfilling a long-held dream of work-life balance. And yet, I still come home on work days and feel exhausted and like I don't have enough energy or patience to engage with my family. I still want more. Along those lines, in 2021, my husband and I got a babysitter most Saturday mornings so that we could have a date day together. But about 6 months into our routine, I found myself becoming bored with our once precious time away, and now I longed for passion too. Here's another one you all have witnessed. In 2021, I leaned into my creative side through speaking and storytelling, which has breathed so much life into me. Doing things like this, here with you, but also sharing more of my most authentic self in my professional life as well. It has all been really meaningful. So, of course, my demon, high on trying new things, incessantly asks me, if that feels so good, why don't you do that more and bigger? And then, towards the end of 2021, I had a realization. This feeling of wanting more time more energy, more passion, more opportunity isn't going to go away. The bar just keeps moving up, and I am conditioned in 1,000 different ways to want more. But wanting more, even of the good things, makes me feel dissatisfied with the good things I already have. I am certainly not saying that change for the better isn't good to want. And I am not suggesting that wanting more and getting more won't sometimes be the right thing. I just don't want my present life to be ruined by the promise of my future life. So, how do I want to feel in 2022? Like I am satisfied with my life as it is. How do I feel right now? Like I have a good life, but more of the good parts would be better. What is the gap between those two feelings? Choosing to tell my brain and my body and my demon that what I have right now is enough. So, if you haven't guessed it, my word of the year for 2022 is enough. What will your word be?
I invite you now to get out your pieces of paper and pencil. And we're going to do a little riff on what Mary Jean just said. You're going to write down 2 words. On one piece of paper, you're going to write down what you would like to shed. What is something you would like to let go of, release, and you'll have a minute here to think. That's on one piece of paper. On the other piece of paper, you're going to write down a word that you would like to rejoice in. What is a word? Perhaps this is your word of the year, a word that brings you joy, lifts you. The shed word is a word that no one will ever see. The rejoice word will be seen by someone anonymous. Now I'm going to invite you to come forward. Here below the pulpit, we have the shedding vase. So the word that you would like to shed, I'm going to invite you to fold up. And when you come up, you can place it right here into the shedding vase, where it will never come out of the shedding vase. It is going to stay there forever, locked away in this beautiful little shedding vase that looks like a cactus. Your rejoicing word, you're simply going to place in the offertory basket. While we do so, Cello Ben is going to play more of our beautiful meditative hymn. This is the time in our order of service where we draw to heart and mind those in our midst who are suffering and those who feel the sweet relief of their burdens easing. I'll invite you to put your feet flat on the floor. Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Take a second to check in with your body. Today we remember the January 6th insurrection. We recall that the democratic process is a core belief of our religion, and that we believe that the beloved community must represent the fullness of humanity. We extend our support, solidarity, and love to all communities for whom white supremacy is a frightening and ever-present force of trauma, loss of life, and danger, both immediate, long-term, acute, and diffuse. We think of all those who have been displaced and affected by climate change, with the awareness that communities closer to the equator have been experiencing these devastating effects for many decades. Our hearts go out to all whose lives have been forever altered due to the Earth's systems changing. We think of the community in Colorado that burned recently. Knowing that northward migration is a result of these changes, may we have faith that our human systems be able to pivot to accommodate the needs of the earth and her creatures during this time of great transition. We give our love to those untangling themselves from relationships that no longer serve them. We grieve for the loss of energy and time that chronic illness takes on the body and mind, and our hearts go out to all who are struggling to make ends meet, those who did not find shelter over this last cold snap. We extend our gratitude to those who make caring for children their primary spiritual practice, especially now in the schools. And we join in wonder with all who are bravely facing their final days. We draw to heart and mind all of the emergency response and healthcare workers, offering them our deepest gratitude, respect, support. We think of all of those who currently have COVID, who are living in quarantine once more. I invite you to draw your attention to your heart center. Draw to your heart and mind someone who you know is suffering. You can envision their face in front of you, their smile. This may be someone who you know very closely, someone who you're acquainted with, someone who you've never met. Could be an animal. I invite you to draw them into this circle of beloved community by speaking their name aloud. Keeping their face in your mind's eye, we'll do a little loving kindness and repeat after me. May you be free from suffering. May you be free from harm. May you be free. You may open your eyes. As always, we rejoice over the exquisite beauty in this world, as small or life-changing as each piece of beauty might be. And now I invite you to come forward and briefly share with the world in 2 to 3 sentences a rare joy or a profound sorrow and light a candle. Hello.
I'm Jennifer Nelson. I'm lighting 2 candles, one for each of my parents. They have both been in a lot of pain lately and experiencing issues with mobility. We found out that my dad has 3 compressed discs and he's getting an epidural on Wednesday. And my mom has to have a hip replacement in March.
I'm lighting a candle of concern for my husband Kent's brother, Mark, who lives in Wichita, who is in cardiac ICU with COVID and pneumonia, and his wife, who is at home with COVID as well.
This is a candle of concern for all healthcare workers, but especially those taking care of COVID patients. As we approach the 2nd anniversary of this stupid pandemic, we are worn out.
I light all the remaining candles for all the joys and sorrows that we remain unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. And now please join me for a moment of silence followed by spoken word. I invite you to close your eyes once more, taking a deep breath into your belly like it's a balloon filling with water. We're going to take this moment to remember our earth. Whatever part of you is touching the floor, is touching the seat, I invite you to ground down as you breathe out, feeling that sinking, melting into the earth. As you breathe in, drawing up strength, love, as you breathe out, giving it to the earth, shedding. As you breathe in, rejoicing for the many abundant gifts the earth gives us. Hope and joy. Let us take this moment to express our gratitude for our earth, formulating in your own heart your own silent gratitude. drawing up from the earth a wisdom in abundance. I invite you to remain seated. You can leave your eyes closed if you know the words to our meditative hymn, There's More Love Somewhere. Continuing your meditation as you listen.
Our reading today comes from Mary Oliver, and it is called Blackwater Woods. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this, the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go.
Let go, shed, release, set down, allow, emancipate, surrender, liberate, free, accept. The process of change can be difficult. Indeed, it can even be painful. To let go of the ways we have operated, the crutches we have used, the choices we have made that we see are no longer serving us. We often find ourselves struggling to release ourselves from that which we are entangled in. We set our sights ahead, but the old ways blow back like the wind, catching in our hair like strong fingers, as Lucille Clifton says. For whenever we seek to live with intention, as we set our sights high on the beautiful and distant horizons, it will be hard to let go. It will be painful to let go, but it is necessary to release ourselves. It is imperative that when the time comes to let go, that we can let it go, because I think we've all seen examples of what happens when people cannot shed. When we cannot allow ourselves to change, to morph, to grow, because shedding is a natural part of life. The snake sheds its skin. The butterfly sheds its cocoon. The deer sheds its antlers. The manatee shed their teeth just like we do when we are children. I'm using these examples from nature because I do believe that it is to the natural world that we must look right now as our greatest teacher. The animals and insects and plants that undertake the cycles of life do so because it is necessary for their survival. The plants that drop their flowers in order to make new ones, the thundering waterfalls that crest the cliff and free fall into the spray of the depths below, giving life to the bottoms, the cycles and systems that exist in nature do indeed hold within their rhythms the presence of shedding. I draw upon these particular examples of the snakes, the elks, the insects, because I want to talk about the earth today. Because what else can anyone really think about nowadays except the health and the wellness and the sustainability of our earth? The earth is on our minds right now because we are living in the presence of a great shift in our earth's delicate balance. And this reality is becoming more and more present to us here in the U.S. Indeed, we as a religious people and we as a spiritual people, we as beings, creatures who are alive, are called right now to face what no one before us has ever had to face. The reality of the massive fires in Australia, in which 1 billion creatures lost their lives, from which people fled to the ocean to escape. The heat bubble in Portland in which another billion sea creatures boiled along the shore. The fires here in the U.S., these are disasters that we have already lived through. These are things that we have already survived, and I want to offer a word today that I hope may lay one more stone in our pathway forward, one that leads us in a direction we had not anticipated we would have to go, but nonetheless one that will equip us with, at the very least, a framework to understand what it is we must do, what we must shed, how we must rejoice in that which is sacred at this particular juncture. So as a people of faith, the health of our most sacred source, the earth, is and always be the very ground of being on which our own spiritual wellness floats. I invite you now for one moment to close your eyes and envision a beautiful nature that you've seen. Maybe it's the cold green water flowing beneath the ice in a frozen Kansas river. Maybe it's the tall, tall trees, the clouds. Keeping your eyes closed, I ask you, is the earth good enough for you? Is the earth good enough for you? Keeping your eyes closed, if the answer is yes, I invite you to raise your hand. You may open your eyes. Now I want to share with you two things that I learned in my ministerial training that I feel particularly are pertinent for this topic today. The first I learned in my work around death and dying. There, in my time spent in the presence of deep, wordless grief, I learned that the first child of change is loss. And I see that on the topic of climate change, we are collectively going through the 5 cycles of grief: denial, anger, detachment, dialogue, and finally, acceptance. I wonder, where are you in your cycle of grief around climate change? Are you in denial? Are you angry? Are you detached? Are you ready to talk? Have you accepted it? In your life at large, which of these 5 cycles do you feel most connected to? For I wonder if you could root your current struggles in the rest of your life back to your experience of climate change, that might draw an important connection for you, because of course there is no you without the earth. There is an earth without you. But indeed, the earth's gravitational pull draws to it more than just the bottoms of your feet, for we are all spiritually anchored in the earth as well. What happens to the earth is happening inside of us, even if we're not aware of it. Because I do believe that it is becoming incredibly clear to all of us that this is a time for lamentation. This is a time to shed many of the ways that we have been. But what is it that we have to grieve exactly? Author Ruby Hamad draws a clear connection between white supremacy, colonization, racism, and ecological devastation. Indeed, she reminds us that the earth existed in climate harmony for millennia under the stewardship of communities who are now considered indigenous. And indeed, the world's indigenous population does protect 80% of the world's preserved lands today. For many people in colonized countries, the indigenous population is thought of as a thing in the past, which genocide would want us to believe. But I do believe that there is that connection between white supremacy, colonization, racism, and climate change. Thus, the way forward from this deeply troubling moment in time is for there to be a great shedding of the white supremacist systems in which we live. Over the course of the next few months, the anti-racist group here at church will be giving us a series of 5 workshops on anti-racism, because it can be difficult to conceive of what this system is from within it. It can be hard to know what it is we need to shed. And so I wonder, in the same vein of being able to let go, in your own process around racism, where are you in that grief cycle? Are you in denial that racism exists in our present world, within yourself and me and your kids and your grandma and the president of the college and the government? Are you angry that I'm bringing it up? Are you detached, ignoring it? Are you seeking dialogue, wanting to learn more? Have you accepted it, like many of the world's populations of color have? In order to get back into right relationship with the earth, much of our current human structures must be shed. And it is up to us to facilitate a just transition now and here. No one else can do it except the people who are alive on the globe right now. Ruby Hamad says that indeed it may be climate change that is the catalyst to wake up majority non-people of color groups like ourselves to see the intersecting and concurrent web of racism and ecological destruction. Indeed, I do wonder if all my training in the hospital was preparing myself and my colleagues to shepherd us through the grief that will come with climate change, through the shedding, the letting go, the releasing, the running into the new year. For I do hope that that burning desire to survive will fuel us towards the changes that have needed to be made inside of each of us, so that we can turn towards the earth and acknowledge with great clarity that indeed our choices must revolve around life itself. That we are only as spiritually well as is our relationship to the earth. For this is the second thing I learned in seminary, is that the Hebrew Bible, the entire set of books that makes it up, Genesis and Exodus, the prophets, Song of Songs, Esther, Lamentation, that this set of writings is about one thing and one thing primarily, and that one thing is land use. That great covenant between God and the people revolves around whether or not the people are in right relationship to the land. That this here is a document that details in so many stories, in so many ways, with great clarity, that indeed our choices must revolve around life itself. That we are only as spiritually well as is our relationship to the earth. And how do we let go then? How do we shed, set down, allow, emancipate, surrender, liberate, free, accept, rejoice? I think we do as Lucille Clifton says. We run towards the new. We ask, no, we beg. We beg what we've loved and left to forgive us. We beg what we've loved and left to forgive us. For part of this shedding, the letting go that we need to do is ask forgiveness from our earth. For being complacent in systems which destroyed her and her creatures. For benefiting from a culture that was built on the division of her humanity into castes and races. Really beg for another chance. To pray to the earth that we might be humble enough to learn from it. That we might be forgiven for the ways we've benefited from systems that were destructive. Let us then look to the earth for understanding and guidance for how to live through times of great shedding. Letting our faith in what is sacred shine like the sun, dawning again and again despite the difficulties we see below us. Just as long as we have breath, let us answer yes, answer to life. Even though disappointment pierces us through, let us take this moment to shed the smallnesses that have held us back and rejoice in that possibility of a bigger love, a greater future, a courageousness that does orient us back towards the sacred. To remember that our lives do lead back to this, the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. For to live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against our bones, knowing that our own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Blessed be, and amen.
The work of the church depends on us, our generosity of time, wisdom, and financial resources. Before we receive your donation, we want to give you one. So Rev Rose will come around and give you one of the Rejoicing Word cards. We invite you to give generously to us to support the ongoing work of the church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry within us, in our hearts, until we are together again.
Please rise as you are willing and able for our closing hymn, Just as Long as I Have Breath. This week, I invite you to notice the earth, pray to the earth, notice how the systems of the earth are affected by humans. Go in peace.